In the lower districts of Halcyon Prime, nobody asked questions they didn't want answered. That rule had kept me alive longer than most. I was a salvage engineer, one of the many nameless technicians who lived beneath the floating spires of the capital, repairing what the wars left behind. My workshop sat between two collapsed magrails, powered by stolen energy cells and faith. Most days, I patched civilian exosuits or stripped down broken drones for parts. But that night, everything changed. She arrived just before curfew. The door slid open with a hiss, and she stumbled inside, armor sparking and cracked, one arm barely functional. Her helmet was gone, revealing a pale face streaked with ash and blood. She was young, too young to be wearing frontline combat armor, but her eyes carried something heavier than fear. "Can you fix it?" she asked, her voice steady despite the damage. I glanced at the armor. Royal-grade alloy. Military class. Definitely not something a nobody like me should be touching. "You know what happens if someone sees this?" I said. She nodded. "I'll pay." I laughed bitterly. "Credits won't save you down here." She met my eyes. "I don't have credits." That should have been the moment I told her to leave. Instead, I locked the door. I guided her to the repair platform and began scanning the armor. The suit was advanced, adaptive plating, neural interface, biometric encryption. The kind reserved for the Queen's Guard. "You're far from your unit," I said. "I got separated," she replied. That was another lie. I could hear it in her breathing. As I worked, I noticed symbols etched into the inner plating, ancient glyphs hand-engraved. Not military issue. "Who did this customization?" I asked. "My mother," she said softly. I paused, then continued working. Everyone in Halcyon Prime had a mother. Only one had the authority to carve personal sigils into royal armor. Still, I didn't connect the dots. I just repaired. Middle. She stayed in my workshop for 3 days while I rebuilt the armor. Outside, sirens screamed endlessly. Patrol drones swarmed the skies. Something big was happening. She watched me as I worked, asking questions about circuits, shield harmonics, power flow. She understood too much for a soldier. "What's your name?" I finally asked. "Alia," she said. I didn't give her mine. Names had weight. On the second night, explosions rattled the district. The emergency broadcast flickered on my wall screen. "Attention citizens," the automated voice declared. "A traitor has attacked the royal convoy. The Queen's daughter has been abducted. Anyone found assisting will be executed." I turned slowly toward her. She didn't move. "That's you?" I said. "Yes." I stepped back, heart pounding. "You should have told me." "If I had," she said, "you wouldn't have helped." She was right. I could have turned her in. The reward would have lifted me out of the lower districts forever. Instead, I looked at the half-repaired armor and made a choice that sealed my fate. "Why were you alone?" I asked. She exhaled shakily. "Because my mother doesn't trust anyone anymore, not even her own guard." That night, she told me everything. The Queen was dying, slowly, from a neural decay caused by early hyperdrive experiments. The court factions were tearing the empire apart, each wanting control before the throne became vacant. Alia had discovered evidence that her own advisors planned to kill her mother and blame the outer colonies. "They tried to silence me," she said. "I escaped barely. And now?" I asked. "Now I need the armor repaired," she said, "so I can finish what I started." I finished the repairs by dawn. The armor hummed to life, stronger than before. I had improved it, boosted shield regeneration, added manual overrides, removed royal tracking protocols. She noticed. "You altered it," she said. "So you won't be found," I replied. She stared at me, something unreadable in her expression. "Come with me." I laughed. "Into the capital?" "I'd last 5 minutes." "I need someone I can trust," she said. "And you already betrayed the Empire for me." She wasn't wrong. We left through the underground transit tunnels as Halcyon Prime burned above us. Ending. The capital spires glowed like knives against the sky as we emerged. Alarms echoed across the city. The coup was already underway. Alia moved like she had trained for this her entire life, because she had. The armor responded instantly, shifting and adapting, her movements precise and controlled. I stayed behind cover, feeding her tactical data through a jury-rigged comm link. We reached the throne chamber as explosions shook the upper levels. Inside, the queen sat slumped on the throne, neural crown flickering. Around her stood the advisors, armed, defiant. "You're too late," one of them sneered when Alia stepped forward. "The Empire needs a stronger ruler." Alia removed her helmet. "I am the Empire," she said. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a reckoning. The armor absorbed plasma fire, while Alia broadcast the evidence she had gathered to every screen in the city. Confessions. Orders. Proof of betrayal. The advisors fell, some arrested by loyal guards, others by their own ambition. I reached the throne as Alia knelt beside her mother. The queen looked up weakly, recognition and pride softening her failing eyes. "You found help," the queen whispered. Alia glanced back at me. "Yes." The queen studied me, then nodded. "Thank you, engineer." Those words echoed louder than any reward. The queen passed away hours later, peacefully, the coup undone. Alia was crowned 3 days later. I didn't attend. Instead, I returned to my workshop in the lower districts, expecting silence. Instead, a royal courier arrived. Inside the data slate was a single message. "Halcyon Prime needs builders more than rulers. Stay where you are. But know this, your hands changed the future of the Empire." Months later, new armor designs began appearing across the city, stronger, fairer, unmarked by rank. Repairs became protections. Salvage became purpose. And sometimes, late at night, when the city lights dimmed, I'd hear a familiar hum outside my workshop. She never came in. She didn't need to. I already knew who she was. The throne chamber was silent after the last confession echoed across the citywide broadcast. The advisors who had ruled from shadows stood exposed, their power stripped away by truth rather than force. Royal guards, those who had remained loyal, moved in at Alia's signal, weapons lowered but resolute. The coup was over before it could become a massacre. I stood near the broken doors, grease-stained hands clenched, watching history reset itself. Alia knelt beside the throne. The queen's armor was ceremonial now, its systems long disabled, its glow fading with her breath. When the queen opened her eyes, they found her daughter instantly. "You came back," she whispered. "I never left," Alia replied, pressing her forehead to her mother's. The queen's gaze drifted past her, to me. For a moment, I expected accusation. Instead, there was gratitude. "You repaired more than armor," she said faintly. "You repaired a future." Those were her last words. The city mourned for a day. Then it listened. When Alia was crowned, she did not wear the royal armor. She wore a simple cloak, unadorned, and spoke without a script. She promised no miracles, only work, transparency, and protection for those who built rather than destroyed. The lower districts watched in disbelief as new policies were announced within hours. Open power grids, free transit, and the dismantling of the tracking systems hidden in civilian tech. I wasn't invited to the coronation. That was intentional. 3 days later, A courier drone hovered outside my workshop, its insignia newly redesigned. No crown, no blade, just a pair of open hands. Inside the data slate was a single authorization code granting me access to royal fabrication schematics and one line of text. Keep fixing what the Empire forgot. I went back to work. Weeks passed. Then months. The city changed quietly. Armor became lighter, smarter, and shared. Repair bays opened in places that had once been checkpoints. People stopped whispering about the palace and started talking about tomorrow. Sometimes, late at night, a familiar harmonic would ripple through the street, the subtle hum of adaptive plating shifting in the dark. I'd look up just in time to see a figure pause at the edge of the light, helmet under one arm. Alia never spoke. She didn't need to. She knew the armor would always hold. Because it wasn't just metal anymore. It was a promise.